All right. Are we good to start? Yeah. All right. Lee, thank you for coming on to my podcast, Coffee for Scalers. It's all about online video and scaling businesses. And I am delighted to have Lee Wilcox as my first guest to the podcast. I think the one thing with Lee, I was thinking about this actually coming up to Birmingham. It's only my second time ever in Birmingham. Yeah. Actually, a company called Skate Hut I met here before.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But anyway, but the one thing about Lee, I was thinking about the term lad. In Ireland, lad is a much nicer word than the UK kind of version, but you are not only you're kind of a lad, but actually you're kind of more like a gas man in Ireland, we say, like a legend. And the other piece is you've done an amazing job of scaling a business which is dominating in the online video space. So I'm delighted to welcome you, and Lee, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm going to change my LinkedIn profile to have like CEO, co-founder of Electric House / gasman / lad.
Yeah. That sounds good. Good idea.
Yeah.
You'll be the only person.
Literally the only person who's got gasman after their title. Unless you are a gasman.
Unless you are a gasman. Yeah. Lee, tell me about Electric House. An amazing business.
Yeah. So look, we are a social media publishing group built out of construction. I paused then because we're just doing some sort of brand positioning and vision positioning, but I'm probably a little bit early to chuck it all out. But when's this podcast going out, Dennis?
In about 2 or 3 weeks after England win.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's too early. Still got internal stuff to do. But we're very focused on building communities. We started within the construction industry off the back of an idea, myself and Adam, co-founded the business with me, who's our chief content officer now. So nearly 7 years ago, we were drunk on a Friday night, and he was moaning about the fact he couldn't find a plasterer on a job. And we came up with this idea about creating a recruitment app for the construction industry for B2B. You've got things like Rated People, Check a Trade, things like that, but it's very much if you want a vetted tradesperson to come into your home and, electrics, boilers, whatever it might be. There's nothing out there still actually to this day that allows the B2B market, so contractors and subcontractors, to connect with each other. How do you get your next job on site? It's all very much like hearsay and who etc. Anyway, we were broke, so we built the spec for an app and sent it off on Elance. They're like it's called Upwork now.
Oh yeah, kind of Fiverr.com.
It's like a freelancing website basically. And spent like $8,000 across 3 credit cards or something. We were like, right. Now we just need to be able to build 100,000 people in one spot, builders, and then we'll launch the app and they'll download it and we'll sell it for millions of pounds. That was the business model. Ad came up with the idea to start a Facebook page. So it was around it was August 2014. And it was a Wednesday. It was like Wednesday the 6th. I remember it. I do remember it. It's bizarre, actually, that we started the Facebook page. And Ad was like adamant that he had lots of funny videos and of people on site. And it was around the time when Lab Bible had been going for probably like 18 months, maybe. Is
that all they were going?
Wow. And it was just that short form viral video was was it. That was what Facebook was. It was riding off the back of YouTube going long form, and Facebook was going short. He had about 4 videos as a joker. So we had to scrape around them for a couple of weeks getting content, and we were just ripping stuff off YouTube and just posting it onto Facebook, doing whatever we could. And then we had this one video that just popped organically, got like 40 odd million views and just drove like insane growth. So after 3 months we had 250,000 followers, and that video itself, we were just like, I think we put about 40 quid spend on it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to work the ads platform, but it was telling me that I should boost it. So I was like, okay, well,
I've got $8,000 now.
The platform's telling me to boost it. I'll just boost it, and that was, we were getting like a couple of million views for a tenner or something. It was ridiculous, because it was just like pushing the whole thing. So, and that kind of just drove us then into this position of like, we had this community that we'd started to build. We then actually started to do more digging and finding out they didn't really exist anywhere else. They were quite hard to talk to. They were very loyal from a brand perspective. They earned good money. They weren't very good with that good money, you know. So we started to build this picture, and then we started to look across the landscape and being like, well, all these other, you know, Lab Bible, what are they doing? They're working with brands. We could do that, you know. But it was all about trying to make some money in that first part. Andy Taylor always said to us, who's our commercial director, early on, he invested from day dot, and he always had this like mantra of like, likes don't pay the bills. He's like, this is all great, but like, where's the money?
Yeah.
What are we, you know, what's the model? What are we doing?
But you're only a few months in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
still a few months in. And then probably after a year, we then started an online store, selling like On The Tools merch. That boomed. We did about 400 grand's worth of sales in the first year. I actually quit my job when I first got that. So we set up the store. We did £800 worth of sales in the first 4 days, and I went and quit my job, and everyone thought I'd lost my fucking mind. Like, and then we did 15 grand's worth of sales in the first month of selling that on the store. It was amazing, but we were just turning money over, man. Like, it was all getting outsourced. We must have been making like 10% at best, but it just allowed me to like have some cash flow and live.
It was all drop ship. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, kind of. We were kind of doing our own like makeshift drop ship, really, because we were connecting all the dots ourselves. As obviously since then, there's platforms that come out and they deal with the whole thing, you know. So we went from that sort of like tech startup to e-com business, and then Andy jumped on board then, and that's where we knew that we had this opportunity to work with brands. We got to a point where we'd done an amazing Christmas through the online store, and then the sales just stopped. We didn't know. It was our first one. We were like, oh, January's really a thing where people don't spend money. And then we had the app back. It was finally finished. It didn't work. And I think that in March, that month.
And were you still bullish about the app?
At that point, that was the model. That was it.
Yeah.
2016, we got it back. At the start of 2016, it didn't work. And then March 2016, I remember we lost something like 24 grand that month. There was only me, Ad, and like 2 other people working on the store. And I was like, well, we're pretty much done here. Like,
okay.
So we convinced Andy to jump on board if we got 3 months salary in the bank for him. We didn't. We got about 6 weeks, and then we rang him. He was like, we've done it. Yeah, come on, you need to start. And his job was to work out how we can start working with brands on a media perspective. How can we start creating content and distributing that through? Because that's where we really saw the benefit. That's where really all the engagement was still coming from. We knew that you know, the community is just about to hit 1 million followers. You know, it's hyper engaged, it's niche.
Yeah,
we know the clients are like, let's get this done. And he came on and within 6 months had 3 massive contracts for us on a retainer for 2017.
Wow.
I think we committed like something like 600 grand's worth of revenue, and we didn't own a camera. Like, you know, it was ridiculous. So that January we then employed like 10 people, and then we went at it, and then we became this media business. You know, we became this publisher. And then since then we've continued the growth with On The Tools. We now sit at around about 5 million followers across multiple platforms. We've acquired and started more communities. We've acquired a community called On A Budget, which is the opposite of On The Tools. It's 3.5 million women in the UK that share ideas around home decor, DIY, gardening. We've also got a third community called Ministry Of, which is teaching kids the things they didn't learn at school, which is all sort of weird and wacky trivia facts and science facts, and which is predominantly going through TikTok, YouTube and Snap. So now we've Electric House now sits at just under 11 million followers of 3 core UK communities, and that's our focus. You know, we want to build communities that people love and that are very much focused on the UK. And the business model now is that we work with clients and platforms to create content for advertising revenue or for marketing objectives, you know, and we're now starting to step into, you know, as you know, and as we've spoken about, more data propositions for clients and the sort of video analyzation and you know, we want to really step into that world as well. So
Oh, amazing story. What an amazing pivot as well, like away from the app into that branded.
I mean, it's like Ad always says we're like a pinball machine. We've just sort of like we're getting a little bit better. We're still a bit like it. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know, we're still very much looking for new revenue models and making sure that we're sitting in the right positioning. But at the start, we were just like all over the place, and we've kind of like leveled a little bit now.
Yeah, it's quite risky at the start as well, where you're smaller, isn't it? But at the same time, you can be so nimble.
You can react to anything.
Yeah. And talking about that and talking about scale, so 11 million, you're saying total followers and everything right now. Like how many employees, or if you can talk about the revenue as well, what kind of scale are you at?
Yeah, so we are 120 people. We will be a 6.5 million revenue business this year. We'll be 10 next year. So we're on a big growth spurt at the moment. And we've got some big plans to try and step on after next year as well. I think the key thing to what we're doing at the moment is we've always been really, really focused on making sure that we're not a business that's trying to raise money to get to the next step, right? We've always been very much focused on profitability, and we did raise money. We did that strategically in the middle of 2019, which allowed us to get to, from that point we were 40 people, then we're 120 now. It was exactly that. For that purpose, we took cash flow funding on to get us to that next stage. But I think because we've been so focused on profitability, and it's always been such a big part of the business, which it sounds ridiculous to talk about, doesn't it? That, our business, we're really different because we're focused on profit.
In this sector, it's true.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. And I guess that's the point I'm making, is that I don't want to make out that we're some kind of like maverick because we focus on profit as a business. But I think what that's going to help us do is that we've invested so much this year and we'll still be profitable. Pretty profitable, but next year we become incredibly profitable, which allows us, and because we've always had that core focus, even through growth, even through times where we're scaling an insane amount in terms of resource and things, we've always still been like, but are we gonna be profitable? Because we're not, we shouldn't do it. Whereas I think what's happened with other publishers in the space, it's been like, let's grow at all costs. Let's not worry about that bottom line. We'll just do the revenue scaling, which I think works if you've got some tech behind you, and if you haven't, I think you fall into a bit of a dark space where you can't get the multiples you need to raise more money because you haven't got that bit of IP and the tech that you need. You just grow, back to Andy's point, likes don't pay the bills. You can grow loads of followers and that's fine. But I think you've got to still have, at the core of it, you still got to have a good functioning business. And I think that's something we've really focused on. So I think that will set us into next year and beyond to be able to scale a lot quicker than what we have already, actually. What that looks like, and I don't know, but it's exciting.
Amazing. And I think like what you said there about like in the digital publisher space and profitability, I thought it was from my experience, like being at Tubular Labs and seeing a lot of the big digital first publishers in the US, where they really scaled up about 3 years ago, I guess, like BuzzFeed, Vice, Group 9 and people. But then there was a lot of change needed. They had to really scale
hit sticky
back.
Patches, didn't they? And I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that obviously their model's crap, because look at their businesses, they're awesome.
Seeing it come out now again.
I think they're awesome businesses, but I think that they got away with it because they had so much scale, right? So that's great. But I think what happens is sometimes you'll get digital publishers that go for that scale, but they don't get a scale of BuzzFeed or Vice or whatever. They sit in this horrible middle ground where you're like, oh, we haven't quite got the scale of these guys, so we can't get the back in, and people can't see the longer term vision and how much the asset is worth. And we're still not making any money. Shit, we're in a bit of a horrible like grey area here, and I think we just didn't want to. We're relatively self-aware, I think, of knowing that we're not a BuzzFeed, we're not a Vice, we're not a Lab Bible, I think the scale there that we don't currently have, and it's a bit of a different model. We're a publishing group that owns and operates lots of different communities. BuzzFeed, Vice, although BuzzFeed now, they're going on this acquisition trail, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but Lab Bible, Vice, BuzzFeed traditionally are a single media publishing brand, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're not focusing on having lots and lots of like different and diverse communities with underneath it. It's a slightly different model. They've gone for that, you know, like Lad Bible, you know, they've really hit that youth culture and they've sat it across. Admittedly, they have a couple of different brands within that, but it's all based on that overarching youth culture of like, and being able to hit the different demos within that. And I think that's where the different model sits, and I think that's why they get so much scale, and I think that's why they're able to step into these worlds now where these RPOs are getting spoken about. I think it's because of that.
And do you think because we saw in the press recently, right, the BuzzFeed's back, and then we saw the news about Lad Bible. What were the rumors on Lad Bible? Was it 140 million or was it much more?
No, much more, like 350, 400 million.
350, 400 million is amazing. It's I guess thinking about like where we kind of saw Facebook video take off and your business really benefited from that as well back in 2014, 2015. And then we kind of saw not as much excitement in this space, but it seems like there's a lot of excitement again. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's more sustainable and stronger this time around?
Yeah, I do actually. And I completely agree. You're right. It went through a real slump. And I think things like, you know, like the Unilad, that just didn't help because it was a scalable brand, had seen huge success, lots of hype, and then it fell in glory, didn't it? And
it hit the wall, didn't it?
You know, and it's such a shame because it was a really good business, you know. But I think that was the only thing to sort of pinpoint the industry on. It's like, oh, there's been a transaction in the industry. What is it? Oh, it's Unilad. It sort of burns to the ground, and it went through this whole like bad press story, and like, you know, and that's kind of
messy, wasn't it?
It was really messy, and that's the only thing that we can look at across the industry to sort of value anything. It was like not a very good place to be, which is why I think it's really positive that, you know, that lots more publishers are now becoming very profitable. Because I think that's, you know, that's happening across the space where previously even publishers that weren't are now becoming like really quite profitable. And I think maybe the industry's matured a bit. Always takes a bit of time. I think that in that matured phase as well, the publishers themselves have took on like really key hires. Like if I look at Lad Bible, they've bought some heads into like from a strategy perspective, and I think that's really started. You know, a couple of years ago they did that, and that's really started to pay off for them now. I think, and I've started to see that across some of the other digital publishers as well. So I think. And then like BuzzFeed, you know, I think anything that hypes up in America, it's true, isn't it? It'll make its way over
2
here.
2 years here later.
And I think, you know, BuzzFeed, Vice, BuzzFeed buying Complex for such a high amount, you know, $300 million. That you can't ignore it. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a good industry or not. You have to go like, oh, there's something going on in the space there. There's money being put into it. And for me, I think the reason it's really starting to take shape now is I think more broadly, brands, private equity, venture are all starting to see the power of a community online, particularly through social, and with the platforms pushing for this race to social commerce. I think what's happening is that everyone's like, oh, okay, hang on a minute. These digital publishers have got all the eyeballs. They've got all the setup to create content. They're engaging with millions and millions of people every single hour. And the platforms are going to try and start selling products through the platform directly in there. There's a connect there, isn't there? People go, okay, the supply chain's starting to appear through these platforms and through these publishers. And because it's so hard to build communities, if you just come and tell it from scratch now, I think there's an exclusivity and a race to go, hang on, how do we mop all this up? Because soon it's going to be too difficult. We're going to miss the boat. It's going to be too difficult to build these communities and build these media brands. We just need to make sure that we've got hold of some of them. And I don't think it helped that the more traditional publishing world, your BBCs, your Skys, your Channel 4s, the broadcasters were slow to it. and they shouldn't have been. They had all the money in the world.
Yeah.
Particularly, you look at Sky. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I think they've caught up. I think they've actually done a pretty good job of catching up. And they went. They bought a few publishing.
Diagonal View and stuff. And
Diagonal View. Yeah. But I think they're still slow. They missed the opportunity where they could have took over.
Such a legacy business for them to protect there. Yeah.
Well, they were at two minds, weren't they?
Yeah.
If we move to here, we're moving people off the eyeballs that are paying for our subscriptions, and I just think they were too slow to move. So I think it's really interesting space at the minute. There's a lot of excitement around.
Oh yeah, it is. It's fascinating. It's particularly coming out of the pandemic, because I think even things like traditional publishers like Daily Mail and The Sun have, like, everyone's not going out there buying that anymore. You can even see it with the England team. I think, like, there's not that what's the headline the next day, because people aren't really buying the paper at the moment and everything.
And what I think's really interesting about that is the England social channels quality.
Did you see the TikTok video?
They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good, aren't they? And that's where people get during the game and instantly afterwards. People are like, I've been doing it. For someone who runs a social media business, however you want to describe it, I'm very fixed on what I watch and what I think, but like I've got fixated on the England channels.
Yeah. FA are doing a great job, aren't they?
Yeah, they're doing a brilliant job, and it's for that reason, isn't it? Yeah. I don't need to go and check the Daily Mail. I don't even need to go onto it online. Yeah. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. I want to see what Sterling's saying. Right there. Yeah.
But I think as well, from an investor standpoint, like those habits of buying the newspaper every day are going to be gone for a lot of these newspapers, like in the future. But one thing I did want to ask you about is I was just thinking there a minute ago about like snakes and ladders, and like actually someone said to me in this space before, in the digital space, was like, you said about like technology being a real moat, and I think it is, and I think it's fascinating what people are doing with mixing data sources together to build robust unique selling points and everything, and technology is amazing in terms of scaling. But anyway, I think the one thing is, someone said to me before about like the Facebook algorithm, that like it was almost like they went up the ladder and pulled the ladder up because you could no longer build an audience there afterwards, and that was kind of a moat that they'd gotten to a level. And I think you said to me about 3 years ago, when on a budget you guys had just acquired and got really excited about or partnered with them, it was like Facebook Messenger was like kicking off. Like, what's kicking off at the moment where it's like a new ladder emerging?
I'm still quite excited. I don't think we've seen the power of like Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram Direct, or Instagram messaging, or however you want to term it. I don't think we've quite seen the power of that yet. I still think they're trying to work that out. They're starting to roll ads out, aren't they, into WhatsApp, and and look, that's the key point here. Wherever ads go, that's where, if you've been there for a good time and then ads start appearing there, you're in the right space because you've got there early, and it means you'll probably be monetized and you'll probably see some benefit from it. So I actually still quite excited about the messaging space. I'm really excited about things like communities through direct messaging. So things like Discord and and then equally things like OnlyFans, Patreon, like those sort of like paywalled communities. I think there's something really interesting to happen there. I still think audio has got. I know podcasting's hard, and it's a very it's a very crowded space. I still think there'll be advancements there as well, but more from an audio perspective. I think publishers have got the opportunity when they're working with brands to link across like audio technology a lot better than probably what we do, to sort of like bring any branded content campaigns to life a bit more, and how you sort of connect the dots on there. But I think from a community perspective, I'm really, really interested in the sort of like Discord technology at the minute, like Slack for Slack for sort of B2C.
Salesforce have said if Slack goes through, I think it's still being held up, where they bought Slack, it's like that's going to be the core communication channel with all of their products.
It makes sense. I think there's it's that, for me, it's that direct messaging part, and that's why I'm excited. Still excited about WhatsApp messaging. I think Messenger's been slow. I think they've made really good advancements, and there's loads of ads through it now. And, you know, I'm sure it's a great product for them. But I think for I don't think we've seen the start of it, if I'm being honest, in terms of how people are going to use WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram. In their daily lives, right? So like how me and you will use them, like you know, it's the WeChat model, they're all trying to work that out. Facebook's the one who's going to do it. If anyone's going to do it, they're going to do it, because no one else really owning the messages. But if you think about messaging in the UK, like it's, for me, it's WhatsApp all day long, right? For others, it'd be Messenger. Okay, I message on Instagram a lot, but not only about content, not about not conversations around anything else. But pull those three together, and obviously they're owned by the same bloody company.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. So if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be them. But they've got to start pulling payments through. They've got to start pulling food ordering. They've got to start pulling taxes through it. Like, and you do that, then I think that's super exciting. And then I think community building through those is, for me, is something that I think is really powerful, because it's same with like the Discord, and it's the same type of method in my head. It's that whole like email marketing 10 years ago, 40%, 50% open rates. It's that again. It's that instant, like, I'm engaged in this community. I like this group, and I get instant messages that I either open or ignore. But when I open them a lot, and I go and engage further from that. And I think that is super powerful. I see a world where we're going to be able to create, like, marketing campaigns will bleed through all of these things. So they'll start at social, and then they'll be connected through audio elements. They'll be connected through messaging, retargeting. They'll be like, it's bringing all those things together. And I think that it happens. I still think it's super fragmented. I still don't think it's. But I think we're going to be able to build communities that are connected through every medium, which I think is so much more powerful than what a newspaper is, or a radio. Listenership is, whatever. It's, massively.
And actually, to that point, I think we talked about this briefly before, about like the power of the niche. What are your, like, and the niche of on the tools, starting with the construction or on a budget, and now your new brand, which is mostly TikTok. Like, what do you think about the power of the niche?
I think we kind of built our business on it. Let's be honest. We I remember very early on, about 6 months in, we had the conversation around, like, we saw the growth of Lab Bible, and you're like, right, we should be doing what they're doing. Let's still call it on the tools, but let's do sport, let's do gaming, let's do it, But because we had the app, we were like, well, if we do that, okay, we scaled to 5 million at that point, which would have been just been insane. I remember when Lab Bible was like a couple of million. It's just been bizarre, isn't it? Now they're like 40 million or whatever now. But we had the conversation, like, well, okay, but we're going to have loads of wastage. People aren't going to want that app. And we're just going to be a poor man's Lab Bible. We're not going to catch them. They're more broad. They're purposely more broad, and we're purposely not. So we took the decision not to do it, and I think it's the best decision, one of the best decisions we ever made, because I think what happened over time was that people didn't want a shotgun approach to content being delivered. Even the platforms didn't. That algorithm change that happened in 2018, we didn't get hit by it because our content was made for the people that were watching it, so we just didn't see a downturn. Lots of other publishers did, because the content they were making was scattergun. It was, and when it was, that initial serving of like 10% of your following, or 5%, are they engaging with it? No. Well, your reach is dropping because the content you create is obviously not right for the people you've got following your page. Really difficult when you've got 40 million followers. Now, and this is why I'd argue that I think Lab Bible have lent into their niche. Whilst they're very broad still, they're owning the space now of youth culture. They've defined who it is they're after, and they've defined the content they create much more than they did 5 years ago. Way more. Which is why I think they're seeing so much success. I think I do believe that even their niche niche to a certain extent. I know it's like,
but in fairness to them, they kind of understand their audience as well, don't they? Like,
Yes.
like I think, like just thinking about that England, and I know we're talking about England football team, but you know where like the headlines in the newspapers would be like damning on a player. Like you'll see that Lad Bible will just like lift the team more than like this.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're about bringing. They are about bringing people together in their content, and I think they do it really well.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I'm really open in saying this as well. I would say 3 or 4 years ago, I thought Lab Bible was going through, but I was like, I don't understand what you are.
Yeah.
You've gone through this scale. I think they're amazing. Now, I look at them now and be like, they've built something that pretty much I don't think anyone will be able to compete with now. And I think they've really rounded off what the brand stands for, and I think their content's getting better every week. I think they're an amazing outfit, but I think they have honed in on who they were trying to target rather than just being everything to everyone, because that doesn't work through social anymore.
Yeah,
everything to everyone just doesn't work.
Yeah, and our Bible guys are great. Hopefully they'll be listening to this.
Of course they will. Of course they will, Dennis.
Yeah, they'll be interested to hear what's going on. So let's switch it a little bit, and I love talking about online video and everything, but about scaling a business, which I'm fascinated with, like how you do it. So you went from 3 of you to about 20 pretty quickly, and 120 you are now, people, and I think you hired quite a few people during the pandemic as well. Talk about the scale and how you did it. Yeah,
you're right. So we went from 3 or 4 of us to 20 in a short space of time. Then we went from 20 to 40 in probably a space of 2 years. 40 to 50 in like a 6-month period, and then we went from 50 to 120 in like 18 months. Yeah. So how'd you do it? I'm getting loads of stuff wrong, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, it's been a breeze, Dennis.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, piece of cake. No, it's really hard, and the hardest part's been going from the 55, 60 to 120, remotely. Really, really difficult, because the difference between going from 20 to 40, right, or even 20 to 50, let's just take that remit over like 2 years, is that it's pretty sustainable, and you're doing it based on your profitability. So you're taking the right decisions at the right time, and you're pretty measured, and you're quite happy to not get the growth that maybe you want, but you know that you're going to be safe, and that you're sort of going through that thing because you've not got any money to sit on, you haven't raised any money. And then when you raise money for the purpose of scaling, you scale, and then you expect the money to come in at the period that it's meant to come in. And then when it doesn't, and things start to slow just a bit for whatever reason, you're going through a global pandemic. Yeah. You're like, oh shit. Yeah. This isn't meant to be happening. And this has never happened before. Yeah. So, and I've not done this before. Before this, I've never ran a business. So how do you do it? Is you surround yourself with people that that care enough and are committed enough and that are bought in enough to solve the problems that you face. And look, my job, how I would say we've got through this period of time, is by just speaking to people who are loads smarter than me and have maybe done it before or whatever. Do you seek counsel? Did we have all the answers? Like, absolutely not. Would I hire again in the same way we've hired at the start of this year? No. Not until... What happened was we added a lot of people into the business this year when we weren't ready to add that amount of people in. It's not the amount of people we added in, it's actually the amount of people we added in at that time. I think structurally, from a managerial perspective, and just having some of the some of those processes and structures in place that we're missing, that we've now got in place. Yeah. I think we could take 30 people in a quarter now. Yeah. And we'd be like, oh yeah, we kind of know where we're going to come unstuck. But at the start of the year, we did it like 10 to 12 people a month, and it 2 to 3 people a week. Just it was too much.
And why were you bringing those people on? Was it the business needed it to get the results, or was it to really scale the business to the next level?
Probably a bit of both. Yeah. Because the pandemic was a funny thing, right? We the first 3-4 months we really got hit. Like we had clients freezing accounts a lot. You know, I'm sure everyone did. Certainly not like being like, oh no, poor us. But we went through what everyone else did. You know, and then we started to like win some work, and we won some big work, and then that flipped it the other side. We were like, oh, actually, we've gone from being like worried about it to being like, shit, we've got to like gear up now, and then. But then the other part is the market, right? So like my job is to make sure that, and something that I get excited about, that I think I'm actually quite good at. One of the few things I'm good at is sort of like this this futuristic approach or view of trying to understand what the market's doing and where we should be going and like what's happening elsewhere and so and I called it like probably before the pandemic, but certainly a couple of months in, is like this thing's going to get consolidated. Things are going to start being purchased and mopped up because there's too many of us, and separated we're not much. Together there's probably something incredibly powerful, and sure enough that's what's starting to happen now. And that scale at the start of this year was like, we've got to get ahead of this. We have to get the numbers a bit higher. We have to get a few more communities into the group to make sure that we're not seen as just on the tools. And you know, so it was very purposeful. The first time we've ever planned to like lose money in a quarter, do you know what I mean? And then you do it, and you're like, okay, and then you do it again for the next thing. You're like, oh god, like I don't like this, but it's what's planned, you know. And I think that's the difficulty in scaling. Is it's for us anyway has been that it was so opposing to how we've operated the business before. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't about like what I said at the beginning, you know, it wasn't about being profitable. It was actually we purposely chose to lose money, and but then your mindset changes as well then, so you're so very fixed on cost management and your budgeting and things become just that little bit tighter, you know. And it's an interesting point culturally, because I think what happens in your businesses is that more broadly everyone's like, look at the money coming in, look at the clients winning, this is great. But because of the amount of resource you're adding in, it doesn't make any difference. You know, actually business is, from a profitability point of view, it's never been worse, you know. And it's planned, so it's fine, but it's managing outside looking in, or even like more broadly across the business. We're smashing it. You know, there's no problems, you know, but actually the challenges, I think, at a board level and executive team level are that, you know, that it's you're on a knife edge. You're on a knife edge of growth here, where you're like, this is really good and we're going in the right direction and everything's fine, but unusually so and never like before. Our cost base has gone through the roof because we're trying to make sure that we're planning, like all the stuff we've done at the first half of this year. It means that halfway through next year, we're going to be so profitable. It's going to be amazing. I can already... last month before, record month last month, smashed it. Like the guys of the whole team of just every part of the business just like hit it. It's amazing. And I can see that that's going to be the regular now. We've like got ourselves into a good position. But if we hadn't have done that scale piece over the last 6 to 9 months, next year is just it's a very average, slow growing year. Whereas now it's going to be a year where we're going to get looked at and be like, where the hell have these lot come from? And then it gives us this opportunity for further scale, further transactions, whatever it is we want to do, we'll be there, we'll be in and around it. So it's
fascinating.
Difficult to manage both operationally and culturally, because you add in so many people into the business, and at a time where you then need that collaboration, cohesiveness, bond to be stronger than ever. Everyone's under a lot of pressure because the numbers are a little bit more harder, and you know what I mean. So they're quite opposing, actually, aren't they? You know, you want people to feel fulfilled and relaxed and content, but you're also putting them under a lot of pressure, and you're adding another 60 people into the business. So it's, but I think we've managed it okay. I've certainly not been perfect, but I think the culture's still how I want it to be. I think we've looked after each other through the pandemic. I think there's been a lot of focus on people's well-being. We haven't ignored that, which has been something that I'm quite proud of, and that the executive team have put a big focus on. So look, you know, it definitely wasn't perfect, and I don't know how I would offer any advice to anyone who's going to go through it, other than maybe like really look at the strain it'll put on your managers when you're adding so many people put in. I think we missed that bit, and I think we let a few people down by going, we'll just add like 10 people into your team, and then they're like, I feel like I'm overwhelmed here. I don't know how to manage all of this. So I think that's probably the one bit of advice.
From everything you've said there, I think as well, like just like the planning is very important, but from a planning perspective, financially, but also operationally, because I think if it's purely financial, like if you're dealing very closely with your CFO, they're just not hardwired in the same way about like how the operation will actually, it'll take 3-6 months of investment to pay off and stuff. So and I think we probably did more focus on the numbers than we did on the ops. I think I don't think we ignored the ops altogether, but I just don't think we went enough detail. Whereas now I think we've got like, we've been, as part of, it's funny because as part of like the intake, we've took on project managers, which are already helping now plan sort of like, do you know what I mean? So you sort of go, well, actually, if you just had some project managers in before, we might have been a little bit more into like, that skill set of like, like transformation through a business. It's a thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? There's people who are brought in on like fixed term contracts to just transform a business through a certain period of time. We didn't have that skill set. We were sort of like patching it. So I think, definitely some really good positive learnings from it. Oh, cool. And a follow-up question on this is like, people talk a lot about people, process, technology with scaling businesses. Are there any that you found is more important than the other, or are they kind of all equally?
Oh man, I'd say we're lacking on the technology part, if I'm honest, Dennis. So I would say, but I think if we'd had it, we would have definitely gave us more information on certain parts. I think we're just starting to get to grips with how the business needs to operate from a technology point of view, and there's going to be a lot of investment going into that. The people and the process part, particularly the people part, it's just like, it's everything for me. In a business like ours, where... in fact, in any business, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, like, even if you've got tech, the tech has been built by people, and the engagement and the fulfillment and the leadership and support that those people need, and is all driven by your leadership team, your executive team, your managers across the business, and about like trying to drag young talent through the door. It's all about people, and that's why we have such a big focus, and I've got such a big focus on the culture and the performance of the business, because I want people to build insane careers here, that then they go and build their own business, or they go and get their next dream job because they've got Electric House on the CV. I want people to look back in 20 years and be like, Electric House is the best place to work. It's like, that's cool. I do want that legacy. Do you know what I mean? But you can't build that by not looking after people. You just can't. It's impossible. So. And look, we're not perfect. We've got to do more. I know that. I think there's always more you can be doing. And I always aspire to look at you look at a lot of big companies and the things they do for their people. And I'm like, I want to do that. And I'm like, but if you do that now, you actually break your business and you won't be supporting them long term, because you can't afford to do that now. I think there's always that thing. So I think you've got to kind of like not offer too much as well. Yeah. Because actually in the short term, you can ruin people's opportunity, because you might, you go too far with it and your cost base goes again, and then you go, actually, we've got to make a few redundancies, and then you're not looking after people who are doing that. So there's always that balance, but I want to get to the point where people look at this business and they're like, it's the best place I could ever work. I get everything I need, both. And I always have this knock on as well of like, how does it make people's partners feel? Because where I worked previously, right? My partner at the time hated the place I worked for because I was always moaning about it. Do you know what I mean? And it was left this like sour taste in the conversation. And I've always thought about that. Of like, I want to make sure that the partners of the people and the family of the people that work here love the business too. Because I think if they love it, you can't. It's obviously good. because they're talking in a positive way about it. They see the benefits of why people might have to, invest a lot of time into what we're trying to build here. I think that's a good thing to think about. Is like, well, what do people's
I think that's a great
it?
point. Like in terms of keeping people in retention and keeping them motivated and everything.
So it's that, how do you make people's lives easier? So what can you offer people to make sure that then it makes their family's life a bit easier? It's that knock on.
Even it's crazy, the small things. Like I remember when I worked at Google, like my whole family were kind of like, you get free lunches and stuff. And
it's that sort of stuff.
Like tables at a table.
Spoke about it before.
And then you as an individual in that situation, you're almost afraid to leave the company or something because you're getting this reinforcement from all of your support network around you. And I think it's even like funny that WeWork beers thing as well. Like you say you work in a WeWork and oh, there's free beers. And like the reality is I worked in WeWorks for about 3 years. I'd say I've had 4 beers.
A beer a year.
Yeah.
1 free beer a year.
Once we get out of there, it was like go to the pub if you want.
I think it's and like the food thing we spoke about that I have a lot. And what does a free lunch mean? Directly people go, it's good, I get a free lunch. But what does it mean to people's families? And I mean, it's you look into the detail of it, it's like, well, does it mean they save money as a family? Yes. Does it mean they've got less prep work to do food for the family, whoever's doing that? Do you know what I mean? Yes. There's a real knock-on effect of not having to think about that. And the convenience of having it if they want it. And I think that's where I want to get the business to. But it's it's a work in progress, isn't it?
It sounds like the culture is great here, and well done for building it. And it's a constant thing, isn't it?
Of course it is. It's only as good as it was yesterday. So I just think you always got to be looking at it.
I've worked in sales a long time. It's like you're only as good as your last quarter. But the one thing I Googled there actually when you were talking about that, I thought of this Richard Branson quote. I don't know if you've heard of this one before. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. It's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. And I look, we've got loads to do yet, and we're still what I would class as a relatively youngish business. But I do feel very accountable for people's sort of like fulfillment and happiness here, and it's really hard to lose your job here, like really hard. Because I think once you're in, it's our job to make sure that you're fulfilled enough and we're fulfilled enough with everything that's going on. Do you know what I mean? I do believe that. So, look, hopefully we can scale and keep. The culture will change. I know that, and it's changed already. You go from this like 20 people, it's family, and there's all that word gets used a lot, and then as you scale, it's not like it was, and you go through those changes, and that's change, and you're gonna go through that. But I think ultimately, for me, it's all about fulfillment and like genuine like happiness. Are people like happy and fulfilled here? Are we getting the best out of them, and are they getting the best out of us? Do they feel challenged? Do they feel fulfilled? Are they happy to turn up? Do they get that Sunday night feeling of like, or do they like go, sweet, I've got this on tomorrow? Like, it's those bits. I'm like, if we can focus on that, I think we'll have a pretty solid business.
And if people love working somewhere, like they'll just give it their all. I found. Yeah. But okay. So I wanted to ask you one kind of final question, really. What are you most proud of? This is a question that gets asked in interviews and stuff quite a bit, like job interviews and stuff. So what are you most proud of?
I think I'm very proud of the culture. I'm proud of the business we've built, the scale. I'm proud of the offices that we get to sort of like bring people in. So I'm proud of all of that. But I would say that definitely the culture would be one. But I think I'm really proud that early on we so the business we set up, myself and Ad, we got Andy involved and Mark and Ian involved very early on. We all went to school together, except for me and Andy. And me and Andy worked together for like 8 years. But me, Ian, Mark, and Ad all went to school with each other. And everyone we spoke to, both personally and in business, people would meet along the way and have meetings, and they would be like, I remember 2 meetings actually where someone was wanting to get involved. They wanted to like put some money into the business, but they wanted to remove a couple of the people that were in the shareholders but weren't operational in the business at that point.
Get you.
And I was like, that's not like they're going to come on. We're just growing the business, and as soon as we can get them on, they're going to. Like, that's not an option. And both times they spoke about the fact that we shouldn't be, you built a business around a load of mates, like it's going to end in absolute tears. And personally, people would say like, oh, you're going to fall out over money, or they ain't going to work. You and Ad running a business, you've known each other since you were like 7 or 8. You ain't going to be able to do it. You're going to fall out. Isn't your friendship more important? All of these types of things. So I'm proud that that hasn't happened. We've proved people wrong. Do you know what I mean? And we're at a point now where like money's not we're not going to fall out over money. We all know what we're building. We know what the end game is. And we've done it without. Do we disagree and do we debate and like all the time, but genuine, like we have so much fun doing what we're doing. I feel so lucky that I get to come to work and be like hugely fulfilled. I get to do it with my best mates, and like we have points where we are like barely laughing, where you're like, and that's my day, and
brilliant.
I feel really lucky, and I feel proud that we've not let like money and work get in the way of what is a really solid. And that actually has been made more solid by building this business together. Because you go through a lot, like, growing and running a business, you'll know this. It's hard, it's stressful, it's sometimes so you get so low at certain points with certain things that will happen that knock you for 6 with something that might happen with a person, with a business or whatever. And you're like, how the hell are we doing this? How do we get out of this? Is it worth it? But then when you've got that bond that is unbreakable there, and you can sort of revert back to that, it makes it easier. So I'm proud that we've been able to stay friends and build a stronger bond than ever before. That's what I'm most proud of.
That's brilliant. I think
that's emotional, isn't it?
Yeah, when you're saying that as well, I guess for me, like where I built like the international part of Tubular in London and everything, and scaled that up, like some of those key people that I built that with, it's like the trust, the trust between you. Yeah. That's really important. That's brilliant. All right. So Lee, thank you so much for joining Coffee for Scalers. And if listening to this as well, listeners, the first episode, please tell 3 people about the podcast. There's going to be more episodes dropping soon, but Lee Wilcox, it's been amazing to have you. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you. That's it. It's a wrap.
Was it recorded?
Was it recorded?
Yeah, it was recorded.
Even you saying that, Jamie.
One more time.
Even you saying that, Jamie, my heart dropped a little bit.
But the interesting thing about YouTube, I think, is in many ways, it's kind of old media. It's almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's on television. I was surprised by some of the television numbers, at least in the US, that 150, I can't pull the number right up, but somewhere between 100 and 150 million people in the US watch it on their television every month.
Yeah.
So it is more than just this sort of community-led video upstart. It's not just an ingrained part of the media landscape. It is a dominant part of the media landscape. And my hat's off to YouTube. They've built a great business. But there are always opportunities for other businesses to come in and do things that the leader isn't doing as you get really big like that. And we've seen that over the past few years.